The capture. The vastness of space stretched out before Captain Zara Chen as she piloted her scout ship through an uncharted sector. Holographic star maps flickered around her, highlighting potential resources and habitable worlds. As humanity's top explorer, Zara had been tasked with finding new homes for Earth's ever-growing population. But she wasn't alone out here. A warning klaxon shattered the silence. Zara's eyes widened as a massive warship materialized from the void, its stealth systems disengaging. Her fingers flew over the controls, trying to break free of the tractor beam that now held her ship in an unbreakable grip. Unidentified vessel, power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. A cold, alien voice crackled over the comms. Resistance is futile. Zara weighed her options. Her small scout craft was no match for the behemoth that now loomed over her. With a reluctant sigh, she initiated the shutdown sequence. As the engines fell silent, Zara straightened her uniform and squared her shoulders. Whatever came next, she would face it with the unwavering courage that had propelled humanity to the stars. The airlock hissed open. Zara tensed as heavy footsteps approached. A towering figure ducked through the doorway, reptilian scales glinting under the harsh lights. The alien regarded her with unblinking yellow eyes. "I am Commander Vex of the Drakari Empire," it hissed. "You have trespassed in our territory, human. You will be detained for questioning." "I'm Captain Zara Chen of the Earth Exploration Corps," she replied, meeting its gaze steadily. "I was unaware this sector was claimed. I'm on a peaceful mission and request diplomatic communication with your leaders." Vex's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "Diplomacy is not our way. You will learn your place, human." Before Zara could react, a jolt of energy from Vex's weapon sent her crumpling to the floor. As consciousness faded, her last thought was of Earth, so very far away. She had failed her mission, failed her people. But this wasn't the end. Somehow, she would find a way home. Zara awoke in a sterile cell, her head pounding. Through the shimmering force field, she could see other prisoners, a menagerie of alien species, all looking defeated. Days blended together as she was subjected to endless interrogations. The Drakari wanted star charts, defense codes, anything that could give them an advantage over humanity. But Zara refused to break. She clung to hope, knowing that giving up would mean betraying everything she believed in. Each time the interrogators left in frustration, a small spark of defiance grew stronger within her. It was during one of these sessions that she first heard whispers of the Empress. The Drakari spoke of her in hushed, fearful tones. She was a being of terrible power and beauty, they said, one who held the fate of worlds in her scaled hands. Zara's fate, it seemed, had caught the Empress's interest. "Prepare the human," Vex ordered, looming outside her cell. "She is to be presented at the grand auction. The Empress herself will be in attendance." As rough hands dragged her away, Zara's mind raced. An auction. Were they planning to sell her as some kind of slave? The thought made her blood boil. But perhaps this was also an opportunity. If she could get close to the Empress, maybe she could negotiate for her freedom and protect Earth in the process. The auction hall was a grand arena, filled with the galaxy's wealthiest and most powerful beings. Zara stood on a raised platform, acutely aware of the countless alien eyes examining her like a piece of meat. She forced herself to stand tall, refusing to show weakness. A hush fell over the crowd as a glittering palanquin entered, borne by muscular guards. The Empress had arrived. Gossamer curtains parted, revealing a being of startling beauty. The Empress was tall and lithe, with iridescent scales that shimmered like opals. A crown of crystalline spines adorned her head, but it was her eyes that captured Zara's attention. Depthless pools of swirling silver that seemed to pierce right through her. "Let the bidding commence," a herald announced. As astronomical sums were called out, Zara's heart sank. How could she hope to appeal to the Empress with so many vying for her attention? But then, to her shock, the Empress raised a delicate hand. "I will take this one," she declared, her voice musical yet imperious. See that she is prepared to serve in my personal chambers." And just like that, Zora's fate was sealed. As she was led away, she caught the Empress's gaze once more. Was that a flicker of curiosity in those alien eyes, or merely the dispassionate interest of a being examining a new possession? Whatever the case, Zora knew that her greatest challenge lay ahead. Somehow, she would have to navigate the treacherous waters of alien politics, win her freedom, and find a way to protect Earth. It seemed an impossible task. But then, humanity had always excelled at beating the odds. The auction. The opulence of the Empress's palace was unlike anything Zora had ever seen. Crystalline spires stretched towards the violet sky, their facets refracting the light of 3 suns. As she was led through winding corridors, Zora marveled at the intricate murals depicting the history of the Drakari Empire, tales of conquest and subjugation that made her shudder. Her new uniform was little more than wisps of shimmering fabric, leaving her feeling exposed and vulnerable. But Zora refused to let it shake her confidence. She was a decorated starship captain, not some meek servant. Whatever plans the Empress had, Zora was determined to turn the situation to her advantage. The doors to the Empress's private chambers whispered open. Zora's breath caught in her throat as she beheld the alien ruler lounging on a floating divan. Up close, the Empress was even more striking, her scales rippling with iridescent hues, her silver eyes gleaming with ancient wisdom. "Welcome, human," the Empress purred, her voice like silk over steel. "I am Empress Nilara, sovereign of 1,000 worlds, and you are now mine." Zora suppressed a shudder at the possessive tone. She bowed stiffly, years of diplomatic training kicking in. "I am Captain Zora Chen of Earth, Your Majesty. I'm honored by your interest in me. But I must inquire as to your intentions. I'm an explorer, not a slave." Nilara's laugh was like tinkling crystal. How refreshing. Most new acquisitions grovel and simper. "You have spirit, little human." She gracefully rose and circled Zora, examining her closely. "As for my intentions, let us say I find your species fascinating. You will attend me, answer my questions about your world. Perhaps in time, you may even come to enjoy your new role." Zora met the Empress's gaze steadily. "With respect, Your Majesty, I have a duty to my people. I cannot simply abandon them to be your pet." Instead of anger, a spark of intrigue flashed in Nilara's eyes. "Your loyalty is admirable, if misplaced. Very well, I shall make you a bargain. Serve me well, prove that humans are more than mere savages, and I may consider opening diplomatic relations with your world." It wasn't freedom, but it was a start. Zora inclined her head. "I accept your terms, Empress. I will do my best to represent humanity with honor." And so began Zora's new life in the glittering court of the Drakari. Days blurred together in a whirlwind of new experiences. She attended the Empress at state functions, learned the intricate dance of alien politics, and slowly began to understand the complex being that was Nilara. The Empress was brilliant and ruthless, capable of both great kindness and terrible cruelty. She seemed genuinely curious about Earth and its people, peppering Zora with questions about human culture, technology, and beliefs. As the weeks passed, Zora found herself opening up to Nilara, sharing stories of her explorations and the wonders she'd seen among the stars. In turn, the Empress revealed glimpses of her own past, the heavy burden of rule, the loneliness of power. One evening, as they watched a meteor shower from the palace's highest spire, Nilara turned to Zora with an unusually vulnerable expression. "You've surprised me, Zora Chen," she said softly. "I expected a barbarian, but I found a kindred spirit. Tell me, do you think your people could ever truly accept beings like us, or are we doomed to eternal conflict?" Zora chose her words carefully. "Humanity has a long history of fear and prejudice, it's true. But we're also capable of great compassion and understanding. Given the chance, I believe our peoples could forge a lasting peace." Nilara was silent for a long moment, her gaze distant. Perhaps, she murmured, but there are many in my empire who would resist such change. The old ways are deeply ingrained. As if to emphasize her point, alarms suddenly blared throughout the palace. Nylara stiffened, her scales darkening with anger. What is the meaning of this? She hissed as guards burst into the chamber. Your Majesty, forgive the interruption, the captain of the guard said, bowing low. But there's been an incident. The human prisoner transport ship was attacked. Dozens have escaped onto the planet's surface. Zara's heart leaped. Other humans, here, hope and fear warred within her. This could be the chance to save her people, or it could destroy everything she'd worked for. Nylara's eyes narrowed dangerously. Find them, she ordered. I want every last human recaptured. As the guards rushed to obey, the Empress turned to Zara, her expression unreadable. It seems your loyalty will soon be put to the test, my dear. I do hope you won't disappoint me. Zara swallowed hard, knowing she stood on the precipice of a momentous choice. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Whatever she decided, nothing would ever be the same again. Rebellion brewing. The news of the human escape spread through the palace like wildfire. Zara could feel the shift in atmosphere, sideways glances from courtiers, whispered conversations that fell silent as she approached. The fragile trust she'd built with the Drakari was suddenly on shaky ground. Empress Nylara sequestered herself in war councils, leaving Zara to navigate the treacherous waters of the court alone. She knew she was being watched, her every move scrutinized for signs of betrayal. But Zara was determined to stay true to her mission of fostering understanding between their species. It was during one of her daily walks in the palace gardens that Zara first made contact with the escaped humans. A gardener pressed a small data chip into her hand as she passed, whispering, "For Earth," before melting back into the foliage. Heart pounding, Zara retreated to her quarters and activated the chip. A holographic message sprang to life, showing a face she recognized. Commander Alexander Volkov, her second-in-command from the exploration mission. Captain Chin, if you are seeing this, you're alive and somehow free. We've established a base in the mountains and are gathering allies among the oppressed species of this empire. But we need your help. You're close to the Empress. We need intel, access codes, anything you can provide. It's time to strike back against our captors and win our freedom. The message ended, leaving Zara in turmoil. Here was the chance she'd been waiting for, a way to actively help her people. But could she betray Nylara's trust? The Empress had shown her kindness, had even hinted at the possibility of peace between their species. Before she could decide, the door to her chambers slid open. Nylara entered, her scales shimmering with agitation. "Zara," she said, her voice tight, "I find myself in need of your counsel. Walk with me." They strolled through empty corridors, the Empress's guards keeping a discreet distance. Nylara was silent for a long moment before speaking. "Your people are causing quite the stir," she said at last. "They've allied themselves with rebel factions, striking at imperial outposts. The War Council is calling for swift, brutal retaliation. They say I've been too soft, that my fondness for you has clouded my judgment." Zara's breath caught. "And what do you believe, Your Majesty?" Nylara's silver eyes searched Zora's face. "I believe that you've shown me a different path, one of diplomacy and mutual understanding. But I fear it may be too late. The calls for war grow louder by the day." It was now or never. Zara took a deep breath. "There may be another way. Let me speak with the human rebels. I can convince them to come to the negotiating table. We can find a peaceful solution, one that benefits both our peoples." The Empress's expression was unreadable. "And if I refuse? If I order you to help us crush this rebellion?" Zara stood tall, meeting Nylara's gaze. "Then I would have to respectfully disobey, Your Majesty. I cannot be party to the destruction of my own people. But I truly believe we can avoid bloodshed if we work together." For a tense moment, Zara thought she'd overstepped. But then Nilara's scales rippled with an emotion Zara couldn't quite identify. Was it respect? Admiration? Very well, the Empress said softly. You have one chance, Zara Chen. Bring your rebels to the table. But know this, if they betray us, if this is some ploy, the consequences will be severe, for all of humanity. Zara bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Majesty. I won't let you down. As she hurried to make contact with the resistance, Zara's mind raced. She'd taken an enormous gamble, one that could reshape the future of two civilizations. But for the first time since her capture, she felt a glimmer of real hope. The next few days were a flurry of clandestine messages and delicate negotiations. Zara worked tirelessly, shuttling between the rebels and the imperial court. She called in every favor, leveraged every connection she'd made during her time in the palace. Finally, miraculously, both sides agreed to a summit. As she stood in the grand meeting hall, watching Nilara and Commander Volkov cautiously approach each other, Zara allowed herself a small smile. It was a beginning, a fragile tendril of peace in a galaxy torn by strife. But little did she know, dark forces were already moving against them. In the shadows of the palace, those who profited from war and oppression were not about to let their powers slip away so easily. The real battle, Zara realized, was only just beginning. Unexpected allies. The peace summit was balanced on a knife's edge. Empress Nilara and Commander Volkov sat at opposite ends of a long table, their advisors arrayed on either side. Zara stood in the center, acting as mediator between the two factions. Your demands are outrageous, Lord Vex, the Drakari war minister, snarled. You expect us to simply hand over territory and technology to a species we barely know. Volkov's eyes flashed. We expect to be treated as equals, not slaves or bargaining chips. Humanity has much to offer in an alliance, if you'd only open your eyes. Zara raised her hands, calling for calm. Please, let's focus on our common ground. Both sides want stability and prosperity. Surely we can find a way to achieve that together. Nilara nodded, her expression thoughtful. Captain Chen speaks wisely. Perhaps a trade agreement as a start. We have resources your people need, and your adaptability could be an asset to our empire. Unexpected allies. The peace summit was balanced on a knife's edge. Empress Nilara and Commander Volkov sat at opposite ends of a long table, their advisors arrayed on either side. Zara stood in the center, acting as mediator between the two factions. Your demands are outrageous. Lord Vex, the Drakari war minister, snarled. You expect us to simply hand over territory and technology to a species we barely know. Volkov's eyes flashed. We expect to be treated as equals, not slaves or bargaining chips. Humanity has much to offer in an alliance, if you'd only open your eyes. Zara raised her hands, calling for calm. Please, let's focus on our common ground. Both sides want stability and prosperity. Surely we can find a way to achieve that together. Nilara nodded, her expression thoughtful. Captain Chen speaks wisely. Perhaps a trade agreement as a start. We have resources your people need, and your adaptability could be an asset to our empire. A murmur of cautious approval rippled through the room. For a moment, it seemed as though a breakthrough might be possible. But then, chaos erupted. The doors burst open, and armed soldiers poured in. To Zara's shock, they weren't just Drakari. There were humans among them as well. Leading the charge was Admiral Krav, one of Nilara's most trusted advisors, and at his side was Colonel Reeves, a human Zara recognized from Earth's military command. This farce ends now, Krav roared. The Empress has gone soft, consorting with primitives. For the good of the Empire, we're taking control. Reeves sneered at Volkov. And you, playing at diplomat. Pathetic. Humanity will never bow to aliens. It's time we showed the galaxy our true strength. In the chaos that followed, Zara's training took over. She dove across the table, tackling Nilara to the ground as energy weapons fired overhead. The Empress's scales were hot against her skin, her silver eyes wide with shock, and something else, concern for Zora's safety. "We have to get you out of here," Zora shouted over the din of battle. She glanced around frantically, spotting Volkov providing covering fire from behind an overturned table. Their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. "This way," Volkov called, gesturing towards a hidden panel in the wall. "There's a secret passage. We used it to infiltrate the palace." Nilara hesitated, her gaze darting between Zora and the rebels she'd so recently considered enemies. "Why would you help me?" Zora gripped the Empress's hand. "Because this is bigger than just our two species now. If we don't stand together, everything we've worked for will be lost." With a curt nod, Nilara allowed herself to be led to the escape route. Zora, Volkov, and a handful of loyal guards from both factions fought their way through the palace corridors. Alarms blared, and the sounds of fighting echoed from every direction. They emerged in a secluded courtyard where a small spacecraft waited. As they rushed towards it, Zora's mind raced. How long had this coup been in the works? How deep did the conspiracy run? Once safely aboard and streaking towards the upper atmosphere, Nilara turned to her unlikely saviors. "It seems I owe you my life," she said, her voice tight with emotion. "But where can we go? If Krav has turned against me, nowhere in the Empire is safe." Volkov exchanged a glance with Zora before answering. "We have a hidden base. It's not much, but it's defensible. We can regroup there and plan our next move." As the stars streaked by outside the viewports, Zora felt a profound shift in the dynamics between them. Humans and Drakari, so recently enemies, now found themselves unlikely allies against a common threat. Nilara's hand found Zora's, their fingers intertwining. "I begin to see why you spoke so passionately of cooperation, my dear," the Empress said softly. "Perhaps there is hope for us yet." Zora squeezed her hand, a determined smile on her face. "There's always hope, Your Majesty, and together, I believe we can forge a future brighter than either of our peoples could have imagined alone." As the ship hurtled through space towards an uncertain future, Zora knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They would have to unite disparate factions, root out traitors, and find a way to bring peace to a galaxy on the brink of war. But looking around at the strange alliance they'd formed, human rebels and loyal Drakari, a deposed empress and an Earth captain, Zora felt a surge of optimism. They had already achieved the impossible once. With trust, understanding, and a shared vision for the future, there was no limit to what they might accomplish. The stage was set for a final confrontation that would determine the fate of two civilizations, and perhaps the entire galaxy. A new era. The Rebel base was a hive of activity as humans and Drakari worked side by side, preparing for the inevitable counterattack. Zara stood at a holographic display, studying the latest intelligence reports with Empress Nilara and Commander Volkov. "Krav and Reeves have consolidated their power," Volkov said grimly. "They're spinning a narrative of alien invasion to the human colonies, while telling the Drakari that we're a threat to their way of life." Nilara's scales rippled with frustration. "If only we could get a message out, show both our peoples the truth." Zara's eyes lit up. "Maybe we can. Your Majesty, doesn't the Empire have a network of quantum entanglement communicators?" The Empress nodded slowly, realization dawning. "Yes, but they're heavily guarded. We'd need to get to the central hub on Draco's Prime, which is undoubtedly where Krav has set up his base of operations," Volkov added. Zara smiled, a plan forming in her mind. "Then that's where we strike. Not just to reclaim the throne, but to broadcast the truth to every world in both our territories." The next few days were a blur of preparation. Loyalists from both species were quietly contacted, forming a network of resistance across the stars. Zara worked tirelessly, coordinating strategy and drilling their makeshift army in joint tactics. Through it all, she and Nilara grew closer. Late one night, as they pored over battle plans, The Empress placed a gentle hand on Zara's arm. "You continue to amaze me, Zara-Chen," Nylara said softly. "When I first acquired you, I thought to learn about humanity's weaknesses. Instead, you've shown me your greatest strengths." Zara met her gaze, seeing the warmth in those silver eyes. "And you've shown me that our differences don't have to divide us. Together, we're stronger than we ever could be apart." Their lips met in a tender kiss, a moment of peace amidst the coming storm. The assault on Draco's Prime was chaos incarnate. Rebel ships burst from hyperspace, engaging the surprised defense fleet. On the ground, human and Drakari soldiers fought side by side, pushing towards the capital. Zara, Nylara, and Volkov led a small strike team, infiltrating the central communication hub. They fought their way through corridors, facing down former comrades who had sided with the usurpers. Finally, they reached the main control room. Krav and Reeves were there, surrounded by guards. "It's over," Zara declared, her weapon trained on the traitors. "Surrender, and we can end this without further bloodshed." Krav sneered. "You fool. Did you really think we'd let some human-loving weakling destroy everything we've built? The Empire will never bow to lesser species, and humanity will never be slaves." Reeves spat. What followed was a desperate battle in close quarters. Zara and Nylara moved in perfect synchronization, covering each other's blind spots. Volkov provided suppressing fire, giving them the opening they needed. In the end, it was Nylara who struck the final blow, her energy blade finding Krav's heart. As the Admiral fell, Reeves realized the futility of further resistance and surrendered. Panting heavily, Zara rushed to the communication console. Her fingers flew over the controls, bypassing security protocols with the codes Nylara had provided. "This is Captain Zara-Chen of Earth," she broadcast, her voice reaching every corner of both territories. "And with me is Empress Nylara of the Drakari. We come to you with a message of truth and of hope." Together, they told the story of the past months, the lies, the manipulation, but also the cooperation and understanding they had found. They spoke of a future where humans and Drakari could work together as equals, sharing knowledge and resources for the betterment of all. "The choice is yours," Nylara concluded. "Continue down the path of conflict and mistrust, or join us in forging a new future, one of unity, peace, and shared prosperity." As the message went out, reports began flooding in. Across both territories, people were laying down arms, ousting the hardliners who had pushed for war. It wasn't universal, and there would be challenges ahead, but it was a start. In the days that followed, a new Galactic Council was formed. Representatives from Earth and the Drakari Empire, as well as other species who had been inspired by their example, came together to draft a charter of cooperation. Zara found herself at the center of it all, a bridge between worlds. And at her side was Nylara, no longer just an empress, but a partner in every sense of the word. As they stood on the balcony of the new council headquarters, watching ships from a dozen worlds coming and going in harmony, Nylara took Zora's hand. "I never imagined this when I first saw you in that auction house," the Empress said with a soft laugh. "How far we've come." Zora smiled, squeezing her hand. "And how far we have yet to go. But together, I believe we can achieve anything." As the twin suns set on a new era of galactic cooperation, Zara and Nylara shared a kiss, a promise of a future filled with endless possibilities, understanding, and love that transcended the boundaries of worlds and species.